I definitely have to say, this show is the one that's entertaining me the most this season, this fall 2019 anime season. It's not my favorite show, but it's the one that I know is going to make me laugh, make me grin, and just be entertained for 20-ish minutes, and I'm always going to anticipate the next episode. This was a blast. This was pure entertainment. We actually got a bit of humanity for our seemingly overly cautious hero Seiya and him actually wanting to protect his mushroom friend as he just insults and berates him as he's like, you know what, you're not so bad, I guess I'll rescue you and you can carry my equipment. But it's just like the numerous reactions. This probably was the best for just reactions alone, and even gave Konosuba a run for its money with just what they were doing to these character models. I mean, there is a moment literally where Seiya is flying at supersonic speed, and as he drags his goddess friend around, her boobs are just like jiggling and coming out, and they're doing the censorship, but it's not that great of a censorship. I think they purposely did it so like there's multiple frames where you definitely can see a nipple, and it's just like her face, and just like, what are they doing with this show? I have no idea, but that's why it's so damn entertaining. Just there's like so many moments you can pick out and just say, this is hilarious, this is hilarious. Oh, that was definitely hilarious. I mean, just the number of times Seiya will just insult to your face, being like, don't need you, definitely don't need you, goddess, as he goes away. What he does, like, there's sometimes he'll do these things that cautiously make sense, and yeah, you know, he has this, like, synthesis skill where he can basically, like, take one thing, turn it into another. Okay, you know, just a sword of the sword doesn't do a whole lot, but goddess hair, that's cool. The first time around, you think, okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But then when you see how many hairs he took from climbing under the bed, the hairbrush, it's like, it's kind of creepy. Like, on one hand, you know, like, he has no interest in this goddess. The goddess definitely is a lot more romantically curious from her side, but the man definitely is doing some things that even is giving her, I don't know if I should be flattered or creeped out, or am I going bald? It's just like, this show's just phenomenal. It really is just a pure entertainment factor, and I love how this was probably the most heroic episode for him, I have to say, because, I mean, you can look at last week and just the blowing up or destroying villages, civilians in the crossfire, like, this man's definitely overly cautious, but, you know, it's nice to see him finally have a moment where you're like, even though he's just saying this kid's only good for carrying his equipment, he respects the hustle that he went through and respects how, you know, he was able to endure the torture, and just to see, like, his blade that can literally cut between time and space itself, to then opening up a portal to go back to the goddess lair, to basically demand from the head girl in charge saying, hey, do this, this isn't technically breaking the rules, I guess you're okay, let's head out. It's so great that it's not just Seiya and just like a generic normal character. I am so happy that our goddess is, you know, she calls it out. She almost represents the viewer in a lot of ways, where, you know, she'll just say these things that we're all thinking, like, you can't say that to her, she's in charge, or that's incredibly rude, or what are you doing, this is dumbfounding. She'll just constantly say what the viewer is most likely thinking, and then she also has her own personality of just, you know, obviously being romantically curious with her main character, and just also her own almost ridiculousness in how she'll apply it to these situations. But for the most part, like 75% of the time, she represents what the viewer is most likely feeling, and that's kind of amazing. It doesn't just feel like wish fulfillment for the viewer, it feels as if like you need a character to balance out what we just saw. When you have a character who can seemingly just get by in this world without much struggle, like he always just comes up with a skill and he gets the job done. But because this is a comedy series that is all about the laughs and entertainment, it's not an issue because you want to see him continue to find new ways to be overly cautious and just do something that's not only going to win him the day, but also is going to make us laugh. I mean, the fact that he can just pull out a dozen bracelets of all different elemental abilities because he primarily uses flames, and he obviously couldn't use ice attacks, but with these bracelets, he definitely can. It's like, the man is just too damn prepared. Like, it comes to a point where you're kind of sitting back in the corner of this room, right? You're like, okay, the goddess, she's dumbfounded. The enemy, he's dumbfounded. The viewer, we're dumbfounded, and Seiya feels like, you know, the only one who understands his mentality is himself, and he's perfectly okay with that. There's something just amazing about all the reactions. Like, it's always the goddess. Like, there's sometimes you'll get a side character or an enemy giving a ridiculous face, but she has, it seems like, an unlimited amount of reactions. Like, the moment towards the very end where she's, like, not even the same character design anymore as he's basically explaining his cautious persona. It's like, how? How do the artists, how did the source material, how did they make so many reactions for a singular girl? I don't know, but they found numerous possibilities, which keeps this entertaining on a visual level. Even if maybe the dialogue personally isn't getting a chuckle out of you, the visuals most likely will. It's just so ridiculous, this show, but I'm so happy that they actually gave us a more serious focused episode. Now, this isn't serious when you compare it to most anime, yeah. However, for Cautious Hero, this definitely was. I mean, there was a lot of laughs, don't get me wrong, but they were actually torturing a kid, making it look like he would die, and, you know, making Seiya not just, you know, say, okay, we gotta go do push-ups before I save the kid. No, like, he actually rose to the occasion and said, you know, I respect this guy, I'm gonna let him carry my swords, and we're gonna go save his life. It was nice to have that to make us show, like, hey, you know, he is overly cautious, we're gonna get a lot of laughs. However, he also understands when it is okay to be a more heroic person in his own twisted way. The kind of lead up, though, to the, like, destroying the gigantic army was pretty fantastic, especially because, like, you know, this is a world that's just, like, it's really medieval. There's not, like, guns and, you know, artillery, things like that. But the man literally pounded a god so much that he got a vision about a meteor strike that he could use and just obliterate the army in one shot. Probably the best joke, though. Honestly, the best joke. Even though it's so familiar to what we've seen before. The idea that he launches this powerful attack and then he's like, okay, we gotta be overly cautious, let's do another one. But then he's looking like, okay, he's actually, you know, winded. Which would make sense, even though he's so powerful, it makes sense. Oh, he only used like 1,500 MP out of like 15,000. The man, he needs to be stopped. It's like, this man could have 1,000,000 MP and he would be probably complaining that he used 1,000 because maybe he'll need 1,000,000 for an attack we don't know he actually has yet. Like, the man is just so great. Honestly, Seiya and this god is probably, it's like my favorite pairing right now. Of just like ridiculousness ball of entertainment and romantic tension that is clearly one-sided. I mean, the way her lips go in for a kiss, it's like, that isn't normal. This isn't healthy, but thank the animators for drawing and just stylizing lips coming off of a head in the way that they did. Every time you think you know what to expect with a show, they'll usually throw a couple of curveballs where you're like, I didn't see that coming. It's definitely in the ballpark of like what you expect for the jokes, but still it's enough to make you say, like, they're still finding new ways to bring the comedy formula into a completely new light, and I appreciate it. I definitely felt that Seiya's voice actor had the most fluctuation in his tone within this episode. Like, he definitely kept to his very serious and get the job done persona, but there was a couple of moments where he kind of felt like he was being a little snarky, a little more like, hey, I'm gonna tell you how it is, and I respect this kid. And just, like, the reactions from the general persona of everyone around you. Like, I love just seeing that Demon King just progressively get more and more worried as being like, this man just ain't right. And everyone's like, yeah, I feel for you, man. Like, you're obviously the evil king here, but I mean, maybe even you don't need to deal with this guy. Like, it's just like, what are we watching sometimes? I don't know, but it's definitely my favorite comedy of the season. Like, this is one of those shows that even if it has production missteps with, like, you know, a character goes off model or like it's not as smoothly animated from scene to scene, it's actually not a big deal. As the entire reason I love series like Konosuba is primarily driven by its visual direction and letting characters be completely wacky and wonky from their general character model that they'll have in general conversation sequences. This series, like, you can look at this episode in particular and you can look at a lot of wider shots and be like, oh yeah, that in any other series would be a glaring issue because, you know, the faces aren't fully filled in, or, you know, the wider shots, they're hanging onto them a little too long. But these character models are just so fun to look at, and with the dialogue that they're speaking, it's like, you want this to be as silly as possible. You want these characters to have the most fun with their body language and just ridiculous visuals, because their dialogue and sometimes even the sound effects and music brings out this hilarious aura that you just want it to feel like this isn't supposed to be super dramatic, super serious. You're supposed to be laughing at the absurdity of an overly cautious hero, and like, it absolutely gets the job done. Like, this was just a pure unexpected episode. I expected that this would be a funny episode, which it was. It definitely had some chuckles, maybe not as hard of a chuckle as past episodes, but still enough to be like, this was damn funny. But I wasn't expecting Seiya to take a more serious route, because when he opens up a portal, right, in the middle of a battle, you probably at this point expect push-ups, training, something like that. But no, he immediately wanted to save this kid, which was a nice change of pace. And I think that's what this series needs, you know, keep it funny, keep it entertaining, and then every so often sprinkle something that we may not expect, being like, oh, that's more of a heroic persona, not something that's overly cautious just looking out for himself, something that feels like he is an overly cautious hero, because at this point, he's just been the overly cautious warrior, right? Now, it's starting to feel like maybe he is the overly cautious hero. I mean, this man is making so many weapons and just he's always prepared. If his sword breaks, he has melee attacks. If his magic fails, he has equipment to make him use other magic. It's gonna be interesting, especially seen by, it seems like these two characters are gonna be tagging along with the crew now. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Seiya is like, well, I said this kid could travel because he's gonna carry my equipment, but this girl, go away, I don't need you. He just is always shutting people down, but it's nice to see that he has this slight little glimmer of hope of humanity that's being like, okay, the more characters we get, the more, variety of comedy we're gonna have, because the goddess can only hold this together for so long, giving us that voice for the viewer, being like, what are you saying? So it is gonna be nice if they actually do add in more characters to the main cast and let him bounce off more personas, not just like one and done characters that we meet throughout the week. It definitely feels like the bigger the cast grows, the more funny this could definitely become, because everyone's gonna be dumbfounded by him, but there's so many ways to make new storylines and just reactions in general just really flourish and continue to make this series feel fresh. But whatever anyone is feeling, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.